So this is the answer booklet for Classification and Biodiversity 4.1 Additional Biology. Here is the review sheet, the knowledge organiser, which you should be using to help you answer the questions while watching the video or before you see the video. The photograph below shows an insect called a water boatman. Water boatmen are invertebrates. State what's meant by the term invertebrate. It is an animal without a backbone. Read the following statements about a water boatman. Water boatmen feed on small fish in the water. Which four statements are adaptations to help the water boatmen find their food? So B, they have long flat back legs to help them swim. They have large eyes. They can dive below the surface of the water. And they have hairs sensitive to the movement in water. The photograph below shows an Arctic fox. The Arctic fox is a mammal belonging to the phylum Vertebrates. Use the given information and your knowledge to complete the classification of this animal. So we have it's an animal, it belongs to the animal kingdom. It tells us it's an invertebrate. In the question, it states that it's a mammal, which you can see here. It's the order carnivores, family Carnidae, and then the genus and the species you have to work out. Remember, in brackets, it tells us our scientific name, which is used for the genus and species. So Alopex is the genus, species is Lagopux. The Arctic fox hunts its prey. The fox lives in the Arctic where land is covered in snow. Explain how each of the labelled adaptations help the Arctic fox survive in the cold climate of the Arctic. It's got white hair because it's going to camouflage and blend in with the snow around it. So it's got thick hair to help keep it warm. It's got small ears to reduce heat loss. It's the only thing we can say for small ears. We can't say to keep warm. It is just to reduce heat loss. The Arctic fox lives in many countries. It's also known as the white fox and polar fox. Why is it important for scientists to use a scientific name? Only thing you have to say is that it's universal and it avoids confusion. We shouldn't be writing anything else if this question comes up. The drawing shows an extinct mammal called the woolly mammoth. Woolly mammoths lived at a time when the climate was very cold. Some of the labelled adaptations help woolly mammoths keep warm. Choose two of the adaptations to state how each one helped the woolly mammals keep warm. So I went for thick hair, which is here. And it's going to actually trap in heat and insulate the woolly mammoth to keep it warm. And again, it's got small ears, and having those small ears is going to reduce heat loss. Woolly mammoths ate plants, suggests how the trunk is adapted to help the woolly mammoth pick up their food, and it's because it's got finger-like ends. In May 2013, the frozen body of a woolly mammoth was recovered from thick ice in Russia. Although the animal died 10,000 years ago, it was still well preserved. Explain why the animal was well preserved, and it's because it was too cold, because in a frozen body, for bacteria to grow, because they like warm conditions, so no decay took place, and the woolly mammoth was preserved. The photographs show 5 organisms and the group in which each one belongs. Use the magnifications below each photograph to place the organisms in order of size, starting with the smallest. One has been done for you. So our smallest organism is our bacteria. Then we go on to B is insects, A is our fungi, then we go D, mosses, and then our mammals then are our biggest. Give the name of the 2 groups that cause decay. It's fungi and bacteria. 2 of the groups belong to the same kingdom. Give the names of the 2 groups and the kingdoms to which they belong. So we've got insects and mammals, and they belong to the animal kingdom. The diagram shows us a suggested simplified evolutionary history of bears, raccoons and pandas. Which animals in the diagram have the most recent common ancestor? And if we're looking present time, okay, present day is here. And we're going here, there's our 3, so polar bear, grizzly bear and brown bear. We have to put all 3 to get the mark. Name 2 of the animals which you would expect to have the most similar DNA and give you a reason. I went grizzly bear and brown bear, and the reason is they have the same genus. Name the technique that would be used to analyse DNA samples from these animals, and we would use DNA profiling or genetic profiling. How does the diagram show that the red panda is more closely related to the raccoon than it is to the giant panda? 2 reasons. The red panda and the raccoon belong to the same family, whereas the giant panda doesn't. And then the raccoon and the red panda, they have the same common ancestor, which you can see here represented by our 2 arrows. 6 types of whales are listed below. They were given their scientific names in the 18th century. State which 3 of the whales were considered to be the least closely related to the fin whale. Give a reason to support your choice. Most common thing here, least. A lot of people will go for the most common. So I went for the sperm whale, the humpback whale and the killer whale, and because they have different genuses. As a result of the invention of DNA profiling in the 1980s, the scientific name of many organisms have been updated. This is because the comparison of the DNA of organisms is more reliable than the comparison of internal features when classifying them. A sample of DNA from a humpback whale was compared with a sample of DNA from a fin whale, a killer whale and a sperm whale. The sequences of 100 codes for amino acids from the same section of their DNA were compared. In the 21st century, some scientists suggested that the name of the genus of the humpback whale should be updated. Use the data given in the whole of this question to suggest a new name for the genus of the humpback whale. Suggest the genus, so it's very closely related to the fin whale. The fin whale's got a genus called Balanoptera. Okay. State the evidence which you used in naming the genus is because its shared majority, 92% of its DNA, was similar to the fin whale. State why the comparison of the sequence of 100 codes from DNA would give you more confidence in your results than only using 20. Well, more codes, we're going to get more accurate results. In 1989, fishermen in the English Channel caught specimens of a species of prawn which they could not identify. They sent the prawns to a marine biologist who said that the species had not been recorded in British waters before. He identified the species by comparing its genetic profile with those of known species of prawn. The results are shown below. Use the genetic profile to identify the unknown species. So the unknown species is here, and we have to match up which one's identical. So it can't be the first one, can't be the second one, has to be the third one, can't be the fourth one. So it's our Pineus japonius. Which of the other prawn species would most likely crossbreed with the unknown species? Give a reason. It's our Pineus carathus. I'm not good at Latin. And the reason is because it shares half of its DNA with the unknown species. Prawns have different names in different languages. For example, Italian, the gamberi, and French, crevette. State precisely how many marine biologists avoid confusing the names of the organisms that they study. Well, they have the universal name because it avoids confusion. Read the information about the palm trees. Palm trees grow in the rainforest in Belize, Central America. Many trees are dying. Every year, millions of palm trees are cut and sold to florists in Europe for making bouquets. Palm trees grow slowly, producing only 2 leaves each year. If too many leaves are cut, the tree cannot survive. The International Union for the Conservation of Nature is concerned about this endangered species and the animal species that feed on it. Conservationists at Bangor University have set up Project Darwin. Through this project, farmers in Belize will grow palm trees in special areas to provide leaves for the floral industry. From the information, why are Zante palm trees sent to Europe? They're sent to Europe because they are to make bouquets. Suggest why the palm trees are dying, because too many leaves are cut. How will biodiversity in the rainforest be affected in the future? If they die, it's going to decrease, and the reason is because there could be less species in a particular area. Why will it take many years for Project Darwin to be affected? Because it only produces 2 leaves each year. The IUCN wants to ban the sale of leaves completely. Suggest why the people in Belize may not want this to happen. There's good money for the country, is benefiting them that way. The Blackface Lion is a species of monkey living in the rainforest in South America. The lion is classified as critically endangered on the IUCN Red List and listed on Appendix 1 of CITES. There are only about 400 individuals remaining in the wild. On the sliding scale above suggests what will happen to the Blackface Lion tamarin unless measures are taken to conserve the species. Well, it's here. If you don't do anything, it's going to go to the right. So either it's going to be extinct or extinct in the wild. If conservation measures fail, state what will happen to the biodiversity of the habitat in which the Blackface Lion tamarin lives. It will decrease. In the rainforest habitat, the Blackface Lion has been cleared to grow maize. Small populations of the monkey now live in isolated pockets of rainforest. The local people are being paid to start local plant nurseries and to plant corridors of native trees, which link up the isolated pockets of rainforest. The diagram shows an aerial view of 900 kilometres of rainforest which is being cleared and planted with maize. Suggests one reason why the local people are prepared to give up some of their farmland in order to create the corridors of native trees. Like it said on the slide before, that they are paid to do it. Suggests ways in which the corridor systems shown in the opposite can be improved. They can be improved by, if you look at the diagram here, that we can make the corridors wider so they're not as narrow, and we can join up all of the isolation pockets, like add an extra corridor here. How will the corridor system help conserve and increase the number of the Blackface Lion tamarin in the forest? Well, if they can move from different pockets, they can avoid predators, they can find different mates so they can reproduce, and they can find food if resources are limited in a specific pocket. So one other way in which endangered species can be conserved, and I've got breeding programmes such as zoos, etc. Write an account of some of the different methods of protecting endangered species of animals and plants around the world. So we've got zoos, they look after endangered species, breed them to increase their numbers. CITES, so it's a conservation in the trade of endangered species, so it prevents the trade of endangered species. SSSI, so the Scientific Special Sites of Interest, so we cannot destroy specific habitats. We've got seed banks to grow dying plant populations, and conservation schemes like WWF that look after and protect endangered species in the wild. Some students want to estimate the number of dandelions on a school playing field. The playing field was too large to count every dandelion, so they sampled a 10 by 10 metre area of the field using a quadrat. The stages with students used in their sampling technique was listed below in the wrong order. Put them in the correct order. So number 1, select a random sampling method. 2, drop the quadrat and count the number of dandelions. 3, repeat the sampling 10 times. And then 4, calculate the number of dandelions in the playing field. Why is it important when the students sample in the chosen area? It's done randomly. It's going to avoid the bias for more accurate results. Lugworms live in burrows in the sand on beaches. At one end of the burrow is a hole, and at the other end is a mound of sand called the cast, which the lugworm has removed from the burrow. Each burrow is occupied by one lugworm only. Owen was asked by his teacher to estimate the number of lugworms in a section of Whiteford Beach on Gower by counting the number of casts. Owen decided to use 1 metre squared quadrats to estimate the number of lugworms present in an area of beach measuring 80 by 40 metres. Which of the following methods would be the correct way for Owen to use a quadrat to sample the number of lugworms? And it would be the middle one, place the quadrats randomly. Okay, that's the most key word we're looking for. We place them randomly within a sample area. Owen counted the number of casts in 10 quadrat samples. The table below shows his results. Complete the table by calculating the mean number of casts. So I added them all up, and then I divided by 10, there were 10 quadrats, and I got an answer of 6.2. Estimate the number of lugworms in the section of the beach by using the following equation. Estimated number of lugworms equals the mean number times the area of section of beach. So the area of the beach was 80 by 40 metres squared. So I've worked out the area to be 3,200, and I have to times it by the mean number, which is our 6.2, which gives me an estimate of 19,840 dandelions. Suggest why this method of sampling would not be suitable for estimating the population of earthworms, and because we cannot see the earthworms within the grass. An investigation into animal biodiversity along the slope of a seaweed-covered rocky shore was carried out as follows. A rope marked at 1 metre intervals was laid from the top of the shore to the lower part of the shore at low tide. At 10 metre intervals, 1 metre square quadrat was placed horizontally, and the numbers of different types of animals living on top of the stones and under the stones were recorded. The following profile on the shore shows the stations. The table shows the number of animals. What name is given to this technique sampling? It is a transect. We're going along a straight line. State precisely where the greatest biodiversity was found, and if we compare on top of the stones to under the stones, we get more under the stones. Suggests why biodiversity was greatest in this location. So why do we have more species there? Because they are hidden from predators. There were more herbivores on top of the stones than under the stones. Explain why. Well, because herbivores eat plants, and plants need sunlight for photosynthesis, so they're going to be on top of the stones.